Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Life podcast. And today we have Christopher Strobach. I hope I'm saying right. So, welcome, Christopher.
Very much. As I understand it, you're gonna go fire off the cuff because we're firing off the cuff today, which I'm notoriously good at from what I know, and then we'll see how this goes. But I'm excited to sit down and have a chat with you here today.
If somebody doesn't know Christopher, he is a sales and operation director at AK Enterprises. Christopher, my first question is, could you tell me about a little bit about your journey from operations management into sales leadership?
For sure. So it looks like you're scoping my LinkedIn profile out. It's a little dated as far as my actual career is concerned because I didn't make a LinkedIn until I was in operations management for a company called Fleet Farm. But to make a long story short, I'm 23 years of age and my career started waiting tables, more specifically hosting at a restaurant called Famous Dave's. Did that for about 2 years. And then I sidestepped into a retail position at that company called Fleet Farm. Was just part-time in the sales department, but my mentality from pretty much that point onward was very much I'm here to do the absolute best I can, regardless of how long that takes. And that mentality helped me climb positions extremely rapidly in that company. So during the 5-year period I was there, I went from part-timer in apparel and 17 years old to operations and eventually auto service manager for the building. That's a relatively quick climb for someone as young as me, but I think part of the reason for that is because I was just wholly dedicated to being my best at everything it was that I did and just running down that rabbit hole here. Now, as far as the transition from that into sales and then eventually being sales and operations director for AK Enterprises. After Fleet Farm, I had taken up a sales role with an exterior construction company called Crown Exteriors. Did that for a while, did extremely well with it, built partnerships with property management agencies, landlords, all kinds of real estate related stuff. So there were deals coming in and flowing in from those fronts as well as the door to door I was doing just residentially, knocking doors, seeing if people needed a hand with getting their roof fixed, getting their windows replaced, getting their siding redone, whatever it was they needed. And then following that, shortly after I got married here, I was offered a position as the sales and operations director for the U.S. market division of AK Enterprises. A couple of other gentlemen on the podcast I'm on called The Cabinet, Antonios, Christian. They are the two owners. They essentially took me on as a third party, let's call it that. So we're
Nice.
an unholy trinity of business things, doing awesome stuff, cracking into the U.S. market, and just doing my best every single day to close deals, help businesses, make as much money as possible. And then later this year, I get to be, as a result of the work we've been doing, I get to be a speaker at the London Business Show covering, I don't know exactly what I'm covering yet, but chances are it's going to be a hell of a speech. So it's definitely an extremely rapid journey from first job at 16 to now 23 years of age. It's only been, if my math is right, and it always is, it's been 7 years on my working journey. I've moved relatively quickly, and I'm proud of it.
That's very interesting, and that shows us like have connections are such amazing and such important to have.
Yeah.
So, what initially attract you to sales and business development?
Okay. So that's actually two different things are answers to that question. So sales in and of itself, my father, he's been in sales pretty much his whole life to a degree. He sold cars for a company called Eau Claire Automotive Group. It used to be Bothan Automotive. This was for 14 years he did that. He was easily one of the best salesmen on that lot, if not the best. And the main reason behind that is because he wasn't a sleazy car salesman. He was in there to help people find the vehicle that they needed. And that reputation followed him into his next career selling modular homes for a company called Design Homes. And that is what he's doing now. I help him with that on Saturdays, oddly enough, just to give him a day off or to give him some time with his firstborn son. but largely. As far as my interest in business is concerned, that started when I joined the school, the real world. So this was probably about 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in December. There was some ads floating around. Our wonderful bald-headed gentleman with a beard who was screaming at the internet was talking about something called the Heroes Year program. Basically, it's you sign up $50 a month, you get 1 year, you're locked into the real world, and then you see if you can make some money. I was like, all right, you know what? For $50 a month, screw it. Let's see if he actually has campuses and professors and all that fun stuff that do teach you how to make money and do cool shit. I joined, and I'm never leaving. You can see on the wall behind me here, I have a graduation certificate from the business campus and Professor Arno,
Nice.
because I'm out of the 30,000 students in that particular campus, I am one of maybe 122 graduates. So over the course of those 3 years, I've done extremely well inside of the real world, been starting to help businesses do awesome things. I think one of my proudest accomplishments during that period was there was a local CMOS gels company that I helped to secure a brand deal partnership with an up-and-coming NASCAR driver, which was a seriously cool deal to pull off. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened during my time in the real world, but that's what got me into the business side of things. It's also kind of directly slash indirectly where I met Antonio, K, all that fun stuff, because they're all students of the school as well. But the story of how I met them is a little different. If I can go off on the tangent here, and I think I will, basically, there were communities on Twitter that were just kind of floating around. Students of the real world made them, all that fun stuff. And they were hosting regular chats on the weekends where they would sit down, host Twitter spaces, and just talk about shit. I ended up joining those relatively regularly, bringing some thoughts and insight in there that they seemed to appreciate. And they were like, hey, do you want to? We're actually starting a full on podcast called Cabinet here. Would you like to be a host on it? Sure. And one thing led to another. And as I've gotten to know those guys, eventually it turned into a business partnership. And now we're going out there and we're making money in the world together, which is extremely awesome. But yeah, no, as far as what got me into business specifically, it was the real world and the world of business and helping businesses and all of that fun shit. That's going to be my world now and well into the future.
I think that most of us who join the real world, our process is speed like 7 times, like so much faster because we know people, we know some stuff. So I think this is the why the real world is a best school in the world.
Yeah. I have no doubt that the real world itself is easily the greatest online educational platform that's ever been created ever. And the reason for that is because you have professors who are vetted multimillionaires from the war room coming in and teaching you exactly what they know. And it allows you to avoid all of the mistakes in business that they encountered, that they endured, that they went through ahead of time. You'll go in there, you'll post a question about a certain deal that you've got working, and you will get an answer not only from the professor, but other business owners within the school telling you, hey, this, and this is looking a little bit sketch. You might want to adjust that. This is a complete waste of your time. Why are you doing that? Or that's awesome. Go into it, make a ton of money. You get the answers right then and right there. Now, that's not to say that the second you join the real world, you start making tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or a year. But with that said, you do get, if you do put in the work, you do get there extremely quickly, faster than you ever would have otherwise.
That's true. And I think it's very true because you need to find your niche in the real world. You need to find what you are doing. And if you find and you will be working hard, you will make it. And plus, like students in the real world can turn you in your friends, in your teammates. That and that is also cannot be like so much faster.
Yeah, and that's one interesting thing about the school itself. So, because of the barrier of entry into the real world being as low as it is, it's $100 a month if you're a brand new student. What ends up happening is you will go in there, and there is a distinct possibility that anyone who isn't a high level student very easily could turn around and scam you. They absolutely could. So, technically speaking, the barrier of entry to actual networking within the real world is to join the council and the war room. That's set up extremely deliberately, and it's for that exact reason. In the earlier days of the school, you could network with people and get to know people on the same path as you, make some friends, make some allies, do business things together. There were a few instances of that being abused, and that shit got shut down extremely quickly because it wasn't worth it anymore to have that be the networking platform. Hence the council being created. And then eventually the council got merged with the war room because it's effectively the same thing, which that's the next thing I plan on joining is the war room. I plan to join later this year. That'll be $8,000 out of my pocket. It's the entry fee for it. However, it's going to be well worth it because I'll be able to fly around, go and meet other students, go and meet people who are doing extremely well. Because sometimes war room members, they aren't necessarily students in the real world. It's just high level people, generally speaking, which I think is extremely cool. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, no, the real world and the community and the camaraderie in there, if you know how to vet people and you know how to ask the right questions, you absolutely can accelerate your progress just by virtue of helping each other out, which is the great thing about that community is everyone's there to see everyone else win and they're there to help you do it to the best of their ability, which is
Think
awesome.
I think somebody like we catch on that Twitter thing, like communities and this stuff. So I was thinking about this, like this is because of the real world. So we have friends from this, not that from the school, but from like everything around that school.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that do come out of the school as a whole that make the world a better place. And that's the whole point of that school is to make people competent and capable and able to do the absolute best that they can every single day, no matter what it is they're doing. Because there are some students in there, if anyone were to join the school, what would end up happening is they would be encouraged and motivated not only to start a business and to help their local communities and businesses within them to do better, but by the same token, if let's say you're not in school and you're starting a business and all that, Luke, the professor in both the self improvement campus as well as the affiliate marketing campus, he will tell you to get a job and he will tell you to be the absolute best you can at that job. If you're in school, he will tell you to get straight A's in school. If you're in college, he'll tell you to get straight A's in college and to pass all the exams. He will tell you you can do, and I fervently believe this, you can do your absolute best in everything that you do and let that snowball effect carry in every area of your life. Because if you only focus on doing your best in business, but everything else, you're shit at it, the fact that you shit at everything else, it's gonna bleed over. It just is. So that's one thing that's cool. It's extremely beneficial to the world because it's creating professionals. It's not just creating business owners, it's creating people who, let's say, they start doing the absolute best they can in their job and they secure several promotions like I did. And then eventually they just shoot right into management and they're making a ton of money from that. And who knows, maybe they really enjoy that work. Maybe they love that job. And you know what? The business on the side, maybe that's something I'll keep as a side hustle, but really I like my job. And that's where the investing and trading campuses come in. I like my job. I'm making good money here. Let me take that capital and invest it. And then you got Professor Adam and Professor Michael and Professor Siller all in there teaching you how to multiply your money. So there's a million different ways you can use the real world to make your life better. There's truly nothing like it.
I think real world make new generation of people, like podcasting people like me, or like use some in the business. So it's like new generations here.
I think what it's doing to sidestep here and to talk a little bit more, I suppose, about my view on the world itself as opposed to the real world as a platform. What you're seeing with the real world is you have all of the men and women, because there are females in the school too, despite the fact that Andrew Tate's the one that founded it, and supposedly he hates women, but there are female students and they're doing extremely well. I digress. You have students in the real world who are developing themselves into people who do their absolute best every single day. And then you have the other cohort, which is the rest of the world, the people who they're lazy about things. They don't want to try their best. They want to just go to their job, half-ass it, go on a drinking bender on the weekends, and then go from there. You have those people. So what you're seeing with the real world and what you're seeing as far as the impact it's making and the generation that's being created that you speak about is you're seeing a generation of people come into play who are going to dominate.
That's true.
They're going to rule the world. Students of the real world are going to rule
Yeah.
the real world around us in due time
Yeah.
because we're all being taught to be benefactors to the world around us. Whereas there's a ton of other people in this world. And that's not to say that everybody else who isn't in the real world is a shit person. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there are a ton of people in this world who they're more leeches. They don't serve as a benefactor. In fact, they want to take from the system. They see something like Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire and they're like, he shouldn't have all that money. He should give it all to people like me, people who don't have money. We should get a piece of that. And everyone who thinks that way, first of all, you're a filthy communist. Stop it. Go and earn the life that you want for yourself, because that's exactly what Elon did. If you look at his business journey from day one until now, the man almost went bankrupt. The man started and failed in multiple companies. The man went through it to get to where he is now. You could do the same thing. You could be the next trillionaire. You really could, but you have to try. You have to put in that effort, that energy, that attention. And most people refuse to accept that reality of the world, which is you are there to be a benefit to the world around you. And if you refuse to be a benefit to the world around you, guess what you're going to be? A serf. You're going to be a brokey. You're going to be someone who doesn't have money, wishes they did. And instead of looking at someone like Elon Musk and be like, what did he do to pull that off that I can do in my own life to make my life better? Instead of doing that, because most of these people have such an overinflated ego, they sit there and they're like, he doesn't deserve that. Some of that should go to me, and that's poor. And they're talking about themselves. You get the idea. It genuinely is stupid. It really is. But you'll have those two cohorts. You'll have the real world and the students there, and they're going to be massively successful. And you'll have everybody else who actively decided to stay poor forever. And that is on them. No one's coming to save them except for themselves. And people don't get that.
That's true. That's true. And I think it's not only broke in your money situation, but it's too broke in your mind.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down, broken in the mind, because let's go down this rabbit hole just for the fun of it. So you've got rich people behavior and you've got poor people behavior. What's the difference? The difference is that poor people behavior is you're focused on things that don't move the needle in your own life. You're focused on politics, on debates, on celebrity drama, on the drama in and amongst your friend groups. You're focused on shit that really doesn't matter. Like at all. You've got rich people behavior. And in between there, you've got what I call temporarily broke. They have this behavior. It's just they don't have the money to back it up yet, but they will. So what you have here on the rich people behavior side is you're more focused on, okay, there are problems around me. How do I solve them? How do I maximize the use of my time? Because we all have 24 hours in a day. Some people are better at using it than others. How do I get to be more and more like the person who is using their time to the best of their ability? And what you'll start seeing is not only are they spending more of their time on high leverage activities in their business and their careers, what have you, but they're also spending more time making sure their relationships are running smoothly. Because if there's a bunch of drama and bullshit like these people over here have, what ends up happening is they have less mental faculties and bandwidth to throw into the things that are going to allow them to make the lives of the people they care about better, i.e. making money, taking them on trips, buying them things. You need to be able to build yourself to do that. And if you've got all of your mental bandwidth tied up in all of this miscellaneous bullshit, you can't do that. And so what ends up happening is not only are you making more money, but your relationships are better too, because you make a point to either make sure the relationship is running as smoothly as possible, or if the other party, because you've got two people you're dealing with, if the other party refuses to be a decent human being to you and to make a point to make your life better, just like you're trying to do with them, you just excommunicate them from your life and you get rid of that baggage. So it really is a mental game. Now the question is, how do you go from here to here and then eventually to here? Okay. So how do you go from poor people behavior to you've got temporarily poor? The way you make that jump is manually, because people who are over in this cohort, they're using their monkey brain. They're thinking emotionally. They're not thinking, to be completely honest with you. They feel an emotion, they act on it immediately, and they do stupid shit. What you need to do is you need to train yourself to recognize you have an emotion, understand it's there. It's not that that emotion isn't real. You're feeling it. It is real. However, acting on it is not the best option right now. So you set that aside and then you do the thing that you know is going to be best for you or best for the parties involved. And you do that over and over and over and over and over again, and you hit that upward spiral. But you've got to manually override your monkey brain. People don't do that because it's just easier to fire off of emotions. That's why people watch the news, believe it, and believe it so fervently that relationships at Thanksgiving get ruined over politics. Stupid. It really is.
I think I think like we have to, but these people like I'm gonna say like this: ignorance is bliss, and that's true. Maybe these people doesn't want to know things because it's like because if you knew too much, your life is never going to be like easy and like chill because you know too much. And these people like I sometimes I'm looking these people and. And I'm saying like, bro, like if you knew what I knew, you were gonna be very stressed.
So, this is an interesting rabbit hole. Ignorance is bliss. Okay.
Hmm.
I disagree. And the reason I disagree is because the people who are ignorant to the ability to make their lives better, they still complain about the fact that their lives aren't better. They know they can do better. They know that there's more out there for them. Social media has made that abundantly clear. There's no such thing as ignorance to the rich lifestyle anymore because everyone sees it on Instagram. Everyone is aware that there is money out there, that there is more that can be done, that there are better jobs out there, that there's more money to be made. Everyone's aware of that. Everyone's aware of better relationship dynamics. Everyone's aware of everything now. You're right. Ignorance is bliss in that if somebody was truly ignorant to the state of modern dating and they were just going out and having fun and whatever, sure. But by the same token, it's impossible to be ignorant to that now unless you literally don't have internet, which 99% of the population of the planet does have it.
Hmm.
So what ends up happening is you have this weird situation where everyone's painfully aware of what's possible and painfully aware of what's going on, and yet they refuse to do anything about it. So for me, the more knowledge I have, the more understanding I have, the more I know about how the world works and how I can impact it, the better, because that's leverage for me
That's
to
true.
do better, leverage for me to do more. So I would say in today's world, ignorance is bliss doesn't apply because ignorance is physically impossible with the advent of technology and social media and everything.
I am saying that because I was hearing in the Matrix movie, in the Neo and this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I was actually watching movies the other day. It was kind of fun watching those again.
so like but like I'm not talking about like the ignorance is bliss about like normal stuff like better life, better job, but like
Uh,
the like really rabbit hole, like really the stuff. I mean,
how the
what
world
this?
works, who's
Yeah.
running it, all
Yes.
that fun stuff. Okay,
Yes.
so let's jump down this rabbit hole then. The people who are unaware of how they're getting shafted by the system. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. And the reason I say that is because they see people online talking about it, especially after Elon opened up Twitter to be a bastion of free speech. Now you've got places like Rumble where people can just sit there and actually talk about the things that are going on in the world. So people are becoming aware of it. They're becoming aware of how the system is screwing them over and who's behind it. Now, the trick there is in that instance, yes, ignorance can be bliss. This is just how the world is. I'll go to my job, I'll work, pay my taxes, I'm just enjoying life. I get my weekends, it's all good. And that's honestly for those people in particular, I do kind of envy them just a little bit. Just a little. Only in the sense that they get to relax a little bit. Now with that said, this is the first time in human history that humans have been allowed to relax as much as we do. Because caveman days would dictate that you didn't get to relax. Because if you relaxed, you were dead. The saber-toothed tiger would come for you, and you would be. That was my phone. My apologies. The saber-toothed tiger would come for you, and you would be screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've got this situation where humanity's in a spot where it's way too comfortable. Way, way, way too comfortable. And you've got all these people who have that ignorance is bliss mentality. But then you got people like me, people like yourself, who we see all of the crazy shit that's happening. We see the way the world's going. We see who's running it. And we think to ourselves, you know what? I don't want to be a slave to that system. I don't want to be caught up in that matrix. So let me just go ahead and sidestep the whole thing. Let me work my way out of it. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot to get there. However, it's worth it. And besides, humans have been under stress and pressure and all this fun shit for centuries, millennia, in fact. And even still, here's another interesting angle we could take. Everyone's under the same amount of stress and pressure no matter what position they are in life. And I tell you this because it's relative. So for somebody who's in the ignorance is bliss category, something that'll majorly upset them, a sports game not going their way, somebody cutting them off in traffic, maybe someone at work being petty, that upsets them tremendously. They get really pissed off about it. Someone like me, what would piss me off? Losing a $500,000 business deal, that would probably piss me off royally, especially if it was something I could have completely and utterly avoided, and I didn't because I didn't. That would piss me off just the same as their football team losing the game. It's relative. You feel the same level of stress and anxiety and anger and whatever it is. It's just the problems are different as your life scales.
That's true. And yeah, that's true. Right now, so I the film The Matrix is like the scene like with Neo attack with some woman and and basically what I understand is like Matrix knows what are you doing before you
Yeah.
doing this before you do this.
Probabilities,
Yeah,
predictability, the
yeah.
predictability of human nature. This is a very deep rabbit hole we can go down. So, social media, the news media, television, advertising, all of it is a play on human nature, human psychology, how we just as people, generally speaking. This is one of those things where you can see it, you can understand it, and not only can you pull the veil back, let's say, and see things for what they really are yourself, but you can also use this to your advantage to a degree. Not saying you should manipulate people, not at all. But if your goal is to be a benefactor to the world around you, it would serve you well to know how to convince people to do what it is you know is best for them. Let's say you're talking to a business owner. They've got holes that need plugging in their sales funnel. They're losing sales because the follow up isn't being taken care of. Being able to talk to them in such a way where they can not only see the problem for what it really is, but also convince them that your solution, the automations you're offering, the services you're offering, are the solution because they cannot fail. They work 24/7, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Being able to convince them of that and get them to see that angle, that's a skill in and of itself. And if you're able to understand human nature and predict it, you can see that coming. I do this all the time in driving. So if I'm out on the road and I'm driving, I'm not necessarily reading people's minds or reading their facial expressions necessarily. However, I am reading how the vehicles are moving. I am sometimes when I am driving up to, say, a corner where someone could turn out in front of me, I will look at whoever is potentially turning out and see if they make contact with me. And then I'm also watching the wheels in the car to see if it starts creeping. Because depending on how fast those wheels start creeping, I know whether or not they're going to cut out in front of me. I make predictions extremely regularly for driving, for things that are happening in my personal relationships, things that are happening in my business relationships. I can see things coming about 50 moves ahead. I think like a chess player in that regard, where I will see a situation. Let's say I'm talking to my wife, right? And maybe there's an argument on the horizon about whatever it is we're talking about. I'm able to take a step back, reel that conversation back, and keep it in a productive cycle, let's say, as opposed to devolving into an emotional argument and getting into the bullshit and just having a shouting match with each other. Of the time that I've been with her, I would say we've maybe actually argued twice over the course of the 2 years I've been with her. Twice. Actual arguments. Outside of that, there are disagreements. There are things we had to talk out. There are things we had to discuss, but we've never, ever, ever had a screaming match. Again, arguments, heated disagreements, but we've never had a shouting match with each other.
I think this you need to teach men how to do this specifically with their wives. So like if if anyone want to be better husband, go to do this man. They can.
Go.
Uh,
Yes. Here's a rabbit hole we can go down. Because I'm only 23 years of age and I'm married. How the fuck, excuse my language, did I find a wife in today's dating market? Is a good question for a lot of young men probably watching this to ask. How did I pull it off? Okay. Now, before I go into that rabbit hole, I do want to say managing relationships is a matter of managing yourself. That's the first thing. Because when you're dealing with another person, their emotions and the way they react to things, it's a result of the things you're doing. They're reacting to what you're saying, what you're doing, how you're saying it, your tonality, everything. Your intentions, they can see right through it, all that fun stuff. So, what you want to be able to do is manage yourself and be able to be tactful and cordial and be able to have a conversation with somebody and see both sides, but also understand why it is you're trying to get her to see what it is you're seeing, if that makes sense. Now, as far as tracking down an actual wife in today's dating market, because that's a whole rabbit hole we can go down right now. That's a process. I will say quite bluntly here, before I met my wife, I went on it some level, I'll say the range is a first date or maybe it's a couple months relationship. Somewhere within that variation, I have met, so gone out with, or been in relationships with between it's about 250 women before I met my wife. Now,
wow.
that was the long portion of the search. I knew what I was after. I didn't want someone who smoked. I didn't want someone who drank. I didn't want someone who had scandalous photos on the Instagram. I didn't want someone who was the college whore. I didn't want somebody who treated people poorly, who disrespected people, who wasn't a kind soul, who didn't want to be a mother, who didn't want to be a wife. Those were all things I absolutely did not want in my life. And so what I did was I had what I was after. I had what I was looking for. I had a list. And whether it was social circles and meeting women through there and then taking them on dates and finding these things out, or dating apps, which was my main avenue, where I could pre screen and actually look at the profile and see what they're about before I even think about taking them out on a date, which was extremely useful, but that's a whole different rabbit hole we can go down. Eventually, after several first dates or several failed relationships, I eventually found my wife. We hit it off. I was screening her throughout the entire relationship in the sense that I was watching to see what her mannerisms were like. What was the company she kept? How did she handle certain situations and boundaries? The boundary for me was I don't like when my girl has single male friends because every man's been in the friend zone. So every man knows that a single male friend who's straight is not a friend. He's waiting his turn. He absolutely is every single time. However, my wife beat me to the punch there. So I didn't have to set the boundary. I brought it up. Hey, this is something I want to let you know about. I have a bit of a thing with single straight male friends. I think it's a little bit weird, mainly because I know from being in the friend zone, 9 times out of 10, those guys aren't friends. They're actually just waiting for their opportunity. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, I know that. I don't have single male friends. If I have a male friend, he's either in a very serious relationship, married, or gay. That's it. And I'm like, nice. So you actually beat me to the punch here. And it was great. So that was just another thing to add to the list. But as time went on, I got to know her. I got to know her family. I got to know what she wanted out of this life. I got to know that she wants to be a mother, have a bunch of kids, be a stay at home wife if she can. I'm providing all of that to her. Everything lined up perfectly for what it is I was after. And now I married her.
Nice.
So it can be done in today's world, gentlemen. It's just a matter of you can't find a wife off of the first girl or two you meet because so many of them are so fundamentally broken by social media, by Instagram, by TikTok, by all this shit that it's a mess. It really is. I'm not discounting that. However, you can still find a wife. It's just you've got to have a screening process and you've got to stick to it. I don't care how hot the girl is. I don't care how bad she wants you. There was a girl I went out once. Absolute smoke show. Like you look at her and be like, fuck, that's a supermodel. And she was a model. She was a local model for some of the clothing brands in the area. Wanted me badly, but she vaped. She vaped. And she didn't want kids. She just wanted me physically for the fun of it. Sorry, not quite my style. It was lovely getting to know you, but this relationship isn't going to work. That was like date number 3 or 4, I think, that I was on with that chick when I found all that out. And I was like, no, 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 no. We're not doing that.
Wow.
But even it was a journey for sure.
do you know how many men will like be with with that mother? Because the lust is the biggest enemy of the man in this
Yeah.
world. Biggest enemy.
It's been amplified too because of the pornography industry. You have a very cheap substitute for intimacy and real relationships in the form of pixels on your screen. How pathetic must you be as a man to resort to that? Is my first question. The second thing is, yes, when you're in actual relationships, managing your lust is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Especially if, let's say, the relationship. So let's say you're a Christian man and you want to save yourself for marriage, sex wise, and you want to find a woman who does that as well. One of the things that I did as my process was I did live with my now wife for a little while before I asked her to marry me. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to see, okay, what's living together like? Because when we see each other on our dates during the week, we're seeing each other at our best. I'm at my best. She's at her best. She's done up. I'm done up. Everything's awesome. And we're on our best behavior. But when you live with somebody, you see them at their highs and their lows. And the whole point of marriage is for richer or for poorer, sickness and in health, better or worse. Those are the vows. So I wanted to go through that before deciding to marry this girl to make sure that this was something not only I could handle, but also she could handle. Because I have a hot temper. I really do. So sometimes I will get angry about things, and I'm good at funneling that energy into fixing the problem. But there is that small period, that window, where if you interact with me when I'm in the middle of being pissed off, you know I'm pissed off, and you could sense it. And sometimes I'm snippy with people when I'm in that state. She managed to live through that. She managed to understand it, and she also managed to help me with it. If I was ever angry at something, hey, is it something I did? No, it isn't. Okay, go ahead and fix the problem. When you're done fixing the problem, you can come snuggle on the bed with me for a little bit because you're probably going to need it. Yeah, that sounds nice. And I would go and destroy the problem, and then I'd go get my snuggles. And everything was awesome. And it continues to be so to this day. But yeah, lust in and of itself. So I sinned in that regard where I had sex out of wedlock, all that fun stuff. And I can't take that back. I contributed to some of the pain that Jesus felt on the cross. I understand. But it was one of those things where I just had to know what it was like living with this girl. Because everything was going great when it's like we were dating, but actually living with her, that's the part I wanted to see and I wanted to play out. Because I genuinely do think that part of the reason that relationships fail nowadays, outside of the fact that men and women both are crazy habitual manipulators, and they always use these tactics and these strategies, and they're trying to see if the other person really loves them and all this bullshit. Outside of that, part of the reason relationships and particularly marriages fail, in my opinion, is because during the relationship, it was just a constant front. They didn't see the real person underneath. But living with somebody, you inevitably see who they really are.
Wow, this was a very strong episode. I
Yeah.
think this episode is for everybody who have a problem with women or who is in the matrix.
So,
This is it, guys. This episode was very good. Thank you, Christopher. Do you want to say anything?
well, I would say main takeaways here: try your best, make a positive impact in the lives of those around you, and take total responsibility for the conditions of your life. Your life will get much better, much faster if you do so.
Yeah,
Also, join the real
best.
world. It's a great place, Tide.
Thank you guys for watching. Give a subscribe, likes, and comment Matrix. Comment that, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye.